Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm Puneet, and in this video we will discuss how to reverse engineer success without copying or plagiarizing. We'll drive these concepts home using some very interesting stories you may not have heard about. I will explain how reverse engineering is the best way to spark your creativity, implement innovative ideas, and craft your brand. With a little bit of luck, you can move your entire industry in a new direction and potentially even disrupt it. Now, most of us have heard stories of top performers like comedian Jerry Seinfield or gymnast Simone Biles, which makes us to believe that their greatness comes from their innate talent, which allows them to become great. Then there is the Malcolm Gladwell story of practicing anything for 10,000 hours to become an expert. But there's a third story that very few people talk about, which is remarkably common path for artists, chefs, writers, musicians, entrepreneurs, and inventors. This path is reverse engineering. This book, Decoding Greatness, How the Best in the World Reverse Engineer Success by Ron Friedman, shows the path of getting there faster by learning from the best. I have teased out the best stories and ideas from this book. The key takeaways for me are that we must work backwards to move forward. Ideas that are just too novel are not well accepted. Build on what's already working and add in your own unique flavor. Adopt, learn, and evolve. We'll discuss this methodical approach in 5 parts. Timestamps are in the description below, so feel free to jump around if you'd like. Consider giving this video a like so the YouTube algorithm can recommend it to others like yourself who may benefit from this. Let me start with one of the best stories I've heard in recent times about two protagonists we commonly idolize. The year is 1983, and Bill Gates announces Microsoft plans to develop a user-friendly operating system just 6 weeks after Apple's boldest invention, the Macintosh. Jobs was livid, and back then Gates was his vendor, not a competitor. He was livid and demanded his staff to get Bill Gates down here tomorrow. The next day, Bill Gates showed up alone to face the firing squad comprising the entire boardroom full of Apple's top brass. Jobs immediately tore into him. "You're ripping us off. I trusted you and now you're stealing from us?" "Well, Steve," he said, "I think there's more than one way of looking at it. I think it's more like we both had this rich neighbor, Xerox, and I broke into his house to steal the TV set and found that you had already stolen it." Gates acknowledged that the mouse-driven graphics operating system was not the brainchild of Steve Jobs. Jobs, still fuming, wanted a private demo of Windows, and a few minutes into it remarked, "Oh, it's actually a piece of shit," to which Gates responded, "Yes, it's a nice little piece of shit." This set the tone for their relationship going forward. Now, you may not have heard about Xerox Alto, which was developed by the brilliant engineers at Xerox PARC, the innovation hub of Xerox in the Silicon Valley. Xerox knew that Alto had value, and it costed $150,000 in today's money, and you had to buy at least 5. The older executives of Xerox could not imagine a world where computers would be a household item and were cavalier to give Jobs a demo in 1979. Jobs was captivated and even told them that they were sitting on a gold mine and that he could not believe that Xerox was not taking any advantage of this. He sped back to his office and told his team, "This is it, we've got to do it. Here's what I want you to catch." Gates and Jobs didn't blindly copy. They had the vision to see far enough ahead that Xerox didn't, and they gave this idea their own flavor. Apple made computers user-friendly, and Microsoft made computers affordable. And that was the key in both of their success. We could argue that we may not have heard of either one of them had they not reverse engineered their first major innovation, and the world would have been very different today. The lesson here is not to find and underutilize innovation and copy. It's to look for elements that make things successful in all kinds of domains, whether it be new technology or building a YouTube channel like this one. Learn in real time and continue to grow your skills without just relying on older ideas from books and courses. Let's discuss the story of Barack Obama. Now, most people don't know this. His first foray into politics was a little bit of a disaster. He got trounced in his first race for Congress by a margin of more than 2:1. I know it's hard to believe, but he was a terrible speaker. As a law school professor, his style was lecturing the voters, and they told him off on election day. He was lost, broke, and almost almost gave up on his political aspirations, then someone in his campaign staff said, "Why don't you take a look at what the pastors are doing in the church and how they're engaging their listeners?" He had the humility to learn and transformed his speaking style. He started collecting and sharing stories from the Bible, using repetition and inflections on certain words. He learned voice modulation and how to slow his tone for improved impact. The rest is history. What's important here that he did not find his talent or spend 10,000 hours practicing. He adopted time-tested tools from a different field and modified his approach. This systematic approach of looking around at other fields, not what's going on in your industry, turns out to be critical for success. Reverse engineering also explains how writers such as Stephen King and Malcolm Gladwell learned their craft, how Claude Monet became a groundbreaking artist, and how Judd Apatow, the producer of Schitt's Creek and many other shows, became one of the most successful comedy minds of our generation. Which brings us to our next story. Judd Apatow was a 15-year-old teenager obsessed with comedy. In high school, he noticed that the local high school DJ was interviewing popular rock bands, and so he thought if he could start his own radio program and interview comedians so he could learn comedy. He started contacting the comedians' agents, but they did not know that the radio signal didn't reach beyond the school's parking lot. After all, this was the 1970s. And so he gets to interview Jerry Seinfeld, Jay Leno, the list goes on. By the end of it, he had a roadmap for becoming a comedian and knowing how to get an agent, how to perform on stage, and he did it by interviewing his idols. Here are some more ideas. If you want to write a non-fiction book, the first thing to do is sift through the bibliography of a book to see what are the sources that went into creating the book. Chefs commonly order dishes to go. They'll go through great lengths to decode an intricate sauce by lining it up on a white plate, often using a magnifying glass to identify the ingredients that went into the dish. As an amateur photographer myself, I'm always looking for clues for inspiring compositions and angles on photography websites before I visit a scenic location. More seasoned professionals are looking at the reflection in the eye of the subject in the image because that tells them where the light was placed. They look at the length of the shadows to decipher the season and the time of day the picture was taken. Before you can master, you must first collect greatness. Create your greatness library in your niche. This immersive process is called implicit learning, and it leads to skill building in ways that is not intuitive at first. We absorb best practices without even trying, and research studies show that we learn to detect patterns even when we're not consciously trying to learn anything. David Bowie had a massive record collection, and Van Gogh, despite being poor, had more than 1,000 Japanese prints. Quentin Tarantino spent so much time watching movies that his local video store hired him as its resident film expert to advise other customers. Award-winning chef Michelle Bernstein encouraged aspiring chefs to spend whatever little money they have on eating in fabulous restaurants. And before his passing, Ernest Hemingway's library exceeded 9,000 books and was growing by nearly 200 new titles per year. You get the idea. If you're on the dating scene and have used Tinder, then you know that it will present you potential partners and invite you to indicate whether you want to be paired with them by swiping left or right. The more you swipe, the better Tinder's algorithm gets in predicting whom you'll find attractive by finding the commonalities in your selections. But without collecting this data first, Tinder's algorithm is pretty useless. If you guys follow my Twitter account, you probably know I'm a huge fan of the Stoic philosophy and concepts like amor fati and memento mori, topic for a future video. Ryan Holiday, a Stoic philosophy expert, learned the technique of writing books using the note card system he learned when he was the research assistant of Robert Greene, another one of my all-time favorite authors. He fills hundreds of 4x6 note cards and collects stories and quotes from a variety of resources. Then he organizes them for use in book chapters. In his blog, he credits this system for writing 3 books in 3 years and becoming the best-selling author and an authority on the Stoic philosophy. Collections don't have to be physical objects. Copywriters collect headlines, designers collect logos, and consultants collect presentation decks. I recommend starting by just taking pictures and screenshots on your smartphone, bookmarking in a browser, or creating a directory of works you admire in softwares like Evernote or Notion. I have a vast repository of ideas which I file in Evernote, use it as my second brain, topic for yet another video, and I'm quickly able to search search them as needed. Once you've collected some great examples of whatever you're trying to master, figure out what makes them compelling. One strategy is to spot the difference. This is the same activity as a child looking at two similar pictures side by side and finding the difference. Just this time, you're trying to uncover hidden patterns in the masterpieces you admire. Ask yourself 3 questions. Why exactly am I drawn to this one? What can I learn from this? And how can I apply this to my next project? I'm building a website to create an online portfolio of my work and just went through this exercise. Any repetitive activity can be turned into a blueprint. By working backward and crafting a blueprint, you will find patterns that demystify how complex things work. Linking to writing a scientific article video here, which is literally the editor and me showing you how to blueprint a complex scientific activity. The next big idea is copyworking, writing something word for word or recreating a piece from memory. If you're an athlete, copy and mimic the training patterns of your idols. You will notice patterns and rhythms as to how they get to their greatness. Copying makes us more creative. There's research out of University of Tokyo where they divided amateur artists in 2 groups. One group was asked to produce original art over the course of 3 days. The second group was asked to produce original art, but then they were asked on the second day to copy the work of an established artist, and then on the third day to resume producing original art. And then they had professional artists come in and rate the works of 2 groups on their originality. And what they found was the group that had paused to copy the work of an established artist was more creative on the final day of the experiment. Compare and contrasting their work against the choices of a master created new possibilities for the second group that they had been ignoring. You can save yourself a lot of time and headache if you start by analyzing what the top performers in your field are currently doing well. Then simply reverse engineer what they do. If you desire a position like someone, go through their LinkedIn profile and do similar things to build your resume. Let me explain the Ben Franklin method. To expand his vocabulary and become more eloquent and express himself more fluently, Ben Franklin devised a method. He bought a magazine called The Spectator. When he found the writing excellent, he would imitate it. He made short hints of the sentiments in each sentence and waited a few days, and then without looking at it, tried to complete the sentences again in his best words. Then he compared his words with the original, found areas for improvement, and corrected them to get better. Aspiring writers do this all the time to uncover the hidden structure in best-selling works, but it works just as well in a tweet or a LinkedIn essay. A nice trick is to try to distill the main point of a paragraph down to a single sentence. You can effectively collapse time and create a new perspective. Marketers can reverse outline memorable advertisement campaigns. Those working in startup companies can reverse outline a successful pitch for obtaining funding, and live artists can reverse outline speeches and even stand-up comedy. The list goes on and on. More recently, Harry Potter has enchanted us with the magical setting, endearing characters, and an engrossing plot. But wait, isn't Star Wars also about an orphan living with his aunt and uncle who are whisked away on an exciting adventure that involves discovering hidden abilities and fighting an evil villain? Now you see what I'm talking about? Reverse engineering is great, but copying verbatim really works. In fact, it's a guaranteed way to fail miserably. Think execution. Present 2 people with the same formula and their results will be very different because they have very distinct strengths, personalities, and life experiences that contribute to how they see the world. When you study the masters, it raises the bar for your performance. While it might be demoralizing at first, don't give up. Instead, celebrate the fact that you are now aware of what areas you need to work on. Bridging this vision-ability gap is the key to achieving greatness. Now, theoretically, anyone could copy the template of the world's most popular TED Talk, the one delivered by Sir Ken Robinson on how schools kill creativity. The tone is conversational, no PowerPoint is used, he speaks passionately, uses signposting, which is telling your audience early what the talk is about, uses understated, well-timed humor, powerful quotes, and storytelling. But what if you're not very good at telling jokes? What if humor is entirely inappropriate for the topic? You need the right formula for the right person in the right context. Your successful formula should complement your unique abilities and feel original for you, both at the same time. A powerful idea here is that of blending influences. Many of the innovations are simply mashups of concepts across domains. Steve Jobs did not invent the MP3 player or the cell phone, but he led a team that found a way of combining the two, leading to the iPhone. In 1995, two Stanford University students, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, took the way academics cite research articles and applied it to organizing information on the World Wide Web, resulting in Google. Modern workplaces are contradictory. Let me explain. The business takes a lot of risks on research, new products, and marketing that may or may not work out. But when it comes to individual employees, there is insecurity. If they take a risk and that doesn't pay off, they get laid off. If employees don't learn, they stop growing, become disengaged, which leads to decreased productivity, or they may leave looking for growth opportunities. We need to find stretch opportunities that don't impose a high cost of failure at the individual level, but at the same time learn to distrust comfort. We don't grow when we're happy, relaxed, and enjoying the good things in life. We learn best when we're challenged, struggling, and occasionally failing. Repetition and feedback are essential to mastery. We need to indulge in reflective practice, analyzing our past experiences to extract important lessons with vivid imagery, mentally rehearsing the specific actions we need to take in advance reliably improves our performance. It helps to be aware that experts rarely make great teachers. Studies show that the better we perform a task, the worse we are at communicating how we manage to do it. Knowing something well makes it hard to imagine not knowing it. We need to ask targeted questions, elaborators, and clarifiers that prompt an expert to reveal their process. This really has been my career, bringing ideas that are working well in other domains, largely unknown to medicine and radiology, and trying to bring them mainstream. It allows me the liberty to spend time consuming content in a wide variety of unrelated genres, invest in self-improvement, and not feel guilty about it. It's always made me a better radiologist, fueled my creativity, and keeps me excited every day. I leave you with this video on design thinking, 9 steps to designing the life you want. Plenty of exciting content on the channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.